Now, this will shock some people, but do you know I used to be a Green? I was a fully fledged member. I thought that what I was doing was the best thing for the country. I was a member of Greenpeace. I was a member of the Wilderness Society. I still want to save trees. I still care about our falling fish stocks and erosion and salinity. But solar cells on roofs are not going to stop the soil from being washed down to the sea. It's just more money being thrown after bad money. I was shocked. Thank you. I was shocked. I was shocked when I found out what was going on behind the scenes. And let me tell you right now, behind the scenes, there are thousands of angry people. There are scientists and engineers and geologists and doctors and lawyers, and they're contacting me from around the world, and they're angry because this is about the science, and science, like any human endeavour, can be corrupted. And what do you know? It has been. They put... The US government put in $79 billion into finding one answer in the climate science debate, one theory. It's a monopoly in science. It doesn't work in business and it doesn't work in science. We asked the scientists to find a crisis, and what do you know? We got what we paid for. They found one. Ladies and gentlemen, we are being deceived. Carbon dioxide feeds plants. It's the only pollution that's pumped into greenhouses to feed our crops. People buy it by the container and put it in there. Not just a little bit higher than current levels in the air. They pump it up to 4 or 5 times what we're breathing in at the moment, and the plants love it. And we get increased tomato yields and lettuce yields and more flowers, and we feed the world. They estimate about 15% we've had 15% growth in crops in the last century, and a lot of that is due to the extra warming and the extra CO2. Did I tell you that? Thank you. And Australia is the largest exporter of coal in the world, but did they say that China digs up nearly 10 times as much as we do? The famous ice cores of Al Gore, we all know those 20-metre square graphs he did, temperature and carbon up and down and up and down. 2 years before he put out that huge graph, the research came out for the 5th time in a high-ranking peer-reviewed journal saying that carbon rises 800 years after temperatures. Temperatures drive carbon, ladies and gentlemen. And you know, Al Gore could have told us that. He had a 90-minute documentary, didn't he? He had control. He could have said the 4 words, temperatures drive carbon first. He didn't say that, and he could have. It's deception. And they gave him a Nobel Prize. Global warming has stopped. None of the models predicted that would happen. The endless droughts ended. All the CO2 came, and global storms last year hit a low for 30 years. And you have to wonder, 90% of thermometers in the US are too close to artificial heat sources and sources of cooling, but artificial sources, 90%. Or 89, I should say, to be exact. That was done by volunteers. Who knows, who read in the paper that 700 or 800 volunteers went out and took photographs of US stations? When did we find out that there was such a massive whistleblowing movement going on behind the scenes? So how much do the climate science team care about the science when they leave thermometers 5 feet above concrete and next to air conditioner exhaust vents? How much do they really want to get the right answer? And who knew that 75% of the thermometers used around the world in the 1980s are being ignored now that we've got all that extra money to do all that climate research? The great dying of thermometers. What happened to all those thermometers out of official records now? And did you know they adjust the data sometimes 50 years after it was recorded? That's right. And the 1970s kept warming for the next 30 years. Did you know that 3,000 ocean buoys looked and couldn't find the missing heat? Most of that missing heat is supposed to be stored in the water somewhere, but they looked. They couldn't find most of it. 6,000 boreholes told us that the world was warmer 1,000 years ago. Boreholes dug all over the world. And the models predicted a hotspot and 28 million radiosondes, 28 million weather balloons, couldn't find it. And they call us the deniers. And did the media forget to tell you too, and our politicians and our Climate Institute fellows and our members of institutes receiving money for climate-related public taxpayer-funded money, did they also mention that 31,000 scientists don't think we need a carbon tax because they don't think there's any problem coming with carbon? And they can call 9,000 PhDs deniers on that list, 9,000 PhDs. Ladies and gentlemen, this has never happened before in science. A grassroots revolution by conservative scientists, meaning scientists who are normally careful with what they say, who don't rush to join any festival and fest going on and a protest behind the scenes. Thousands of scientists are revolting. They're saying that this is wrong, that this is not science, that this is not how science is done. There's never been another petition like this. It's been done twice, ladies and gentlemen. People criticised the first one because it had a few duplicates, so they did it again. Can you imagine how much work that was for the volunteers to collect 31,000 signatures? And of course, they forgot to mention that for every dollar paid to a skeptic, $3,500 were paid by big government to people who believed in the theory of man-made global warming. 3,500 to 1. It's a topsy-turvy world out there. We've all got better things to do, but when the people who represent us call fertiliser pollution, when they label the volunteers stooges, and when they call the paid hacks independent, when they look at a colour chart and they say that yellow, that's red, and they call us the deniers, we know that things are running off the rails, and when they ask us to pay billions to change the weather, we know the train's gone off the cliff. When even they admit the results will be too small to measure how many thousandths of a degree will that be, Julia, sometimes we just have to do something, don't we? We can act now or we can pay the cost for years to come. Each time we let them get away with an untruth, they grow stronger. Each time we ignore the Orwellian perversion of our language, is that carbon pollution or is that a carbon dioxide tax? We feed the parasites who want our freedom and our money, and that hurts us, our children and the environment. Ladies and gentlemen, they call themselves modern scientists, but they break laws of reason known to the ancient Greeks. They tell us there will be endless droughts, and then when people drown in floods, they say, we told you the rain was coming. They want us to emit less CO2 and they tell us we need a free market to do with it, if they only knew what a free market was. They do everything they can to fix that market. They fix the price and they compensate the voters. Isn't one of the most basic things about the free market that we are free to choose if we want to buy it? Isn't the idea that anyone has the opportunity to buy at the same price, but will the masses pay the same for the carbon tax? No, the carbon tithe will be broken up. We'll give breaks to trade-exposed exporters, to domestic-exposed employers, to low-income earners, to medium wage holders, and to our friends, our fans, and our favourite marginal seats. This is big government getting bigger, and it's another chance to crony up the country. In fairyland greenomics, everyone gets jobs and no one gets to pay. It's only the evil polluters, ladies and gentlemen. If you're a low-income earner, you'll pay more for your petrol, so in theory you'll use less petrol, right? Right, that's how it's supposed to work. But then the government says it'll compensate you too, so it doesn't cost you more, which means you'll just use as much as ever. Well, that mucks the plan up a bit, doesn't it? But here's the catch. Even if you get compensated, someone somewhere will be paying that tax. And not just the tax, but for a whole class of people. The auditors of the tax, the architects of the corporate renewable energy plans, the renewable energy certificate schemes, the brokers to buy the credits, the marketing guru to sell the scheme, and the government department to manage the rules. Green jobs, ladies and gentlemen, green jobs. You didn't know you needed them, you still don't need them, but you'll get more of them and you'll pay for them. They want us to think it's a big nasty polluter who'll make less profit, but corporations are groups of people. They're the people who need jobs, they're the owners, the shareholders, the people who want to buy the product and the consumers. When Greens strike down the evil polluters, they strike down everyone in that chain. Thank you. And some people still might kid themselves that they won't pay. We're all consumers, employees, or stockholders, or friends of consumers, or mothers of sons who work for companies that need those jobs, or maybe won't need those jobs when the tax comes in. They'll cancel your son-in-law's job contract, reduce the dividend on the shares to shareholders and on super funds that you are forced to hold. The stock price falls and your super fund falls too. People pay in all kinds of ways. And you know, the person in the end who pays for the tax is still the same schmuck who pays all the other taxes. It's you. It's us. We all pay. Ladies and gentlemen, the tribal witch doctors are at work. They want us to pay billions to change the weather. It's time to tell them no. For tens of thousands of years, witch doctors have been saying, pay us your tithe, we will stop the storms. Nothing's changed. They swap the rune stones and the tea leaves for simulators and models. They still can't predict the weather. Who wants the tax? Ladies and gentlemen, let's look at who's pushing for this tax. The trading scheme that's coming at the end of this fixed price period. The people who really want us to trade carbon are people like Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, HSBC, Deutsche Bank. They're doing what banks would do. It makes sense. I'd be kicking them if I was a shareholder and they weren't getting in. There's heaps of money on the table here. If carbon becomes a $2 trillion trading scheme around the world, as it is predicted to be, how much money will there be in it for the brokers? Of course those guys want to be in this deal. Absolutely Goldman Sachs and HSBC and Deutsche Bank and all the big banks want to have a trading scheme. But think about it. The big bankers want us to trade carbon. Who's standing up for the people? Now, there are white lies, there are big lies, and there are lies that matter. Back in August 2010, Julia Gillard obviously thought the Australian people would not want a carbon tax, or she would have run her campaign on it, wouldn't she? Yes. Instead, she thought we'd want an ineffectual climate committee and the certainty of knowing a carbon tax would not be imposed before another election. 7 ALP seats were won with less than a 2% margin. Remember, this was a government that ended up 72. It made a difference what those 7 seats did. In Corangamite, a mere 700 voters who decided they wouldn't want a carbon tax could have changed the leadership of the nation. This is not just a lie, this is deception writ large. Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, the Australian public were never given the chance to vote on this issue. There was never a discussion about the benefits or the costs. It was not a debate topic. The commentators and opinion writers did not thrash out the risks and the costs. This is not how democracies are supposed to work. And lastly, ladies and gentlemen, this is so much more than just climate change. Government is a self-propagating organism. It will grow until something stops it growing. What stops it growing? Us. Thank you. The government, all governments, will get as big as we let them get. They will take as much as we put up with, as much as they can get away with. If we don't say no, they will just ask for more. We've all been cruising along riding the extraordinary success of Western civilization for the last 5 or 6 decades. We assume someone else, many of us do, not the people here today, assume that someone else is keeping them honest, someone else will spot the flaws. But when the government serves itself and the media falls asleep at the wheel or becomes political activists, who are the watchdogs? Who are the auditors? We are, ladies and gentlemen. We don't just need to pay the tax, we need to pay attention. Thank you.